Hello and welcome to the Christian Study Abroad podcast. My name is Greg Belgum, and I serve as the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships here at Living and Learning International. I also serve as the Conference Chair for the Christian Study Abroad Conference. And today I'm joined by Fehr at Grove City College, as well as Sara Hernandez, an enrollment manager here at Living and Learning International. And these two folks just came out of a conference at ACSD at Calvin University. And we're going to have a conversation a little bit about that conference, what they experienced together during that event. And then we're going to talk big picture about how student affairs at Christian colleges and universities can partner and collaborate well with study abroad professionals within that same kind of higher ed space. And so, Eric, good to have you on with us. It's super excited that you're here. And Sara, welcome to the podcast as well.
Awesome. Yeah, really great to be here.
Great.
Hey.
Great. Well, Eric, hey, can you start for us a bit about what is ACSD, a little bit of the scope, some of the history, the mission, and who is ACSD for those that are unfamiliar?
Sure. Yeah. So ACSD is the Association for Christians in Student Development. I have the privilege of serving right now on the executive committee as the outreach and engagement chair. So this is, I don't know, kind of like within my job purview, if you will. The association, think about NASPA or ACPA, the two large student affairs professional organizations. ACSD is probably the smaller national Christian version. So it's all in the name. It's an association for Christians in student development. So those who are doing student development work at the college level. So your RDs, your deans of students, directors of campus activities, your vice presidents of student life. The association does a lot of the same things that NASPA does in terms of providing educational resources, professional development, conferences, virtual ongoing events for professionals who work in higher ed who identify as being Christian. So the majority of our membership is made up of professionals who are currently serving at faith-based institutions. But it's not for just those folks. It's for any Christian serving in student development. So about 4% to 5% of our membership are made up of professionals from non-faith-based institutions, with another 4% that are about 4% that are working in like higher education adjacent fields. So I would say that like Living Learning International, not being a college, would be like that adjacent field, which is kind of cool. So we hold an annual conference, and every single year it's hosted at a different Christian institution, similar to the Christian Study Abroad Conference. And just, I guess, a little bit of the history is it was formed by deans of men and deans of women separately, two different organizations back in the day. And somewhere along the line, those deans of men and those deans of women, I think because the men pursued the women for a merger, they got turned down a couple times, which is really funny. But they eventually merged together and formed ACSD. I don't know all the previous acronyms. We have a history page that has like just name change after name change of all these different organizations. But ACSD is working towards its 50th anniversary in 2030, which is super cool. So they eventually did merge and they became one association for Christians working in student development. And they started their first conference at Taylor University. And every year after that, we've been somewhere else. And Greg, as you just said, we just hosted our conference at Calvin University. They're our first time host who's hosted 4 times. So they just set kind of, I guess, a new record or a new historical moment. They're the only current school who's hosted 4 times, which is pretty big.
That's great. What was your role with the conference itself? Were you a part of putting the event together?
No. So the site host, so the student development team at the host college are the ones who chair the conference. They plan everything. They run a lot of stuff up to exec just for permission, such as like speakers and themes and stuff like that. So I didn't have a direct hand in the majority of the work. The Calvin staff, shout out to their team, did an amazing job. But the host staff really does the majority of the heavy lifting, which also makes the conference just special every single year, unique every single year, as the host team really gets to put their flair around how everything's planned. The majority of what I did is I just helped with promotions. My volunteer team takes care of marketing and social media, stuff like that. And then we also have what we call collaboratives. So they're focus area community groups that meet throughout the year virtually. And that's also underneath my bucket. And I helped work to schedule those out for in-person meetings at the conference. So I did liaison work with some members of their team to do that. But again, they really did all the work and should get the big high fives and all that stuff.
For sure. Well, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure the Calvin team did an amazing job. Could we camp there on collaboratives just for a second? Because I do think that that's a great, for somebody who's saying like, what's kind of the tapestry or the ecosystem of professional groups within Christian higher ed? I think that collaboratives are actually a really special part of ACSD that help folks kind of find their tribe within this broader student development group. Could you talk a little bit about the collaboratives?
Yeah, so the collaboratives were started, I believe, back in 2011, 2012, sometime around there. ACSD had been very regionally based, and so they had regional directors who helped put on different events. And just at the time, folks were wanting to meet more with their focus area. Not every school is the same. You can go from school to school, and staffing structures might be completely different. There's going to be some roles that are pretty staple, like your RDs are going to be everywhere, your VPs are going to be everywhere. But in between those, like things could vary drastically from school to school. So when folks wanted to meet more within focus areas, collaboratives were just the easy way to do that. That was also I guess right after things like Facebook really started opening up, becoming much more global rather than you need to have a university email address to access. And so as all of this social media access is becoming just so much easier for folks around the country, around the world, it made sense to take collaboratives and go virtual with them. So the groups meet pretty regularly through the academic year. They'll have 1 or 2 meetings a month based on the focus area. So we have a focus area for housing and res life. That's going to be probably our bigger one. Commuter services, student engagement and leadership is going to be your activities and club folks. Your senior student development officers are going to be your VPs and deans of students. Student conduct, behavior intervention, student success. Multicultural collaborative. I'm going to miss someone, so I hope if they're listening, they don't get offended. We have 12 different collaboratives, but many of those collaboratives also then have subgroups within them. So the housing and res life group, they'll have a monthly directors meeting, a monthly assistant directors meeting, and then a monthly resident directors meeting. And what we found was RDs tend to not want to talk about all their problems when their director's in the room. And so kind of separating those out and giving them peer groups that they can associate with is just really helpful. So there's a lot of those like focus areas, but we also have some like identity formed groups, such as our new professionals group, really aimed for folks who are within their first like 3 to 4 years. They gather regularly to talk shop, learn about the field that they're in. They will run a book study that runs through the year. So they grab the same book, read it, and then they meet virtually to talk it through. They'll have a sounding board meeting. So the collaboratives themselves are just really meant to be a place where you can ask questions that you're struggling with. You can offer solutions to folks. We love seeing people share pictures of like the different things that they have going on, whether it's an event or like a really cool space that they're super proud of. It's a place to associate with others and hopefully build your network. So that way, in times of need, there's people who support you and vice versa.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, anytime there's an association or organization trying to bring people together, it's probably the tension is we want to be inclusive and bigger and host, kind of a broad audience. But then the attendees, the more you abstract that up the levels, the less relevant it becomes. And so the collaboratives seem to be the kind of antidote to that. So really, anybody's going to have their core peer group of 3, 6, or 10 or 12 kind of more close friends or colleagues that they journey with for an extended period of time. That group text of people that you've just clicked with. And so, I would imagine that the collaboratives are a great way to do that. So, okay, let's hop back to the conference a little bit. And Sarah, I'd love to kick it over to you. You attended the conference. Living and Learning was a sponsor of the conference. So you had a table. what were some of your impressions and takeaways coming out of the annual conference as a little bit of a, I mean, Eric, I don't know the term you use, but you describe living and learning as kind of a we're not an institution, we're not a university in our own right, but we are delivering, academic programs. But yeah, Sarah, what were some of your impressions as kind of a new attendee?
Yeah. I think it is, it's just super exciting to be part of a space where professionals care so deeply about not just the work itself, but the people behind the work. And so I think that was super evident in how I kind of engaged with the conference. It was so clear that these professionals care so much about the work they do and the people that they are serving. And so I was really energized just to be in that space, to be around people who are really passionate about what they do. I think something that was super encouraging, I think, as I got to table as an exhibitor, was just the conversations that I had with lots of different professionals across a lot of different universities. And I think one of the themes that I kind of recognized in conversation was that it really did feel like we are all kind of part of the same team with the same mission to care for students as a whole person. And I think the student development professionals were really excited about, like, let's partner well to get our students off of our campus to experience transformation in a new and challenging way that's going to be different than how they would experience that here on our home universities. And we're excited to entrust our students with you. And it didn't feel like, no, I have to hold on to this in order to ensure that the student experiences the transformation I want them to experience. It really did feel like we are all on the same team and we're excited to partner with you in that. So I think those were some of the big things that I realized was, like, man, these people are excited about what they do and excited about who they serve. But I think maybe this is a generalization, but I think in that sometimes maybe the assumption is like, I have to hold on to this myself so that the outcome that I want, I can like ensure that outcome happens. But in that space, it really did feel like, no, we're excited to entrust them with you in the work that you're doing around the globe. So that was super energizing and really encouraging to be part of those conversations.
I love that. Sarah, I think I'll just give like the 20-second bio on you just to paint the picture leading up to this next question. You were a student at Azusa Pacific, and then you joined, and while a student, you studied abroad with us in Ecuador. Following undergrad, you joined our staff in a Res Life role as a resident coordinator. You lived in an apartment in Ecuador with a handful of girls from different Christian colleges and universities and spent a year mentoring those students in that, housing in life on life kind of capacity. Following your time with us, you joined staff at Azusa Pacific in an enrollment capacity, doing admissions counseling, and then an admissions manager for 4 years at APU. And then you joined our team 2 years ago. You came back to Living and Learning in this position. And as an enrollment manager for Living and Learning, your role is to visit a bunch of Christian colleges and universities every single semester. And so you get on airplanes and you set up a table and you chat with students. And so in certain ways, you're kind of a visitor to those schools, but you also have a really unique perspective to journey with students during their pre-departure experience as they're making decisions and they're thinking about leaving their home institution to then study abroad. And then because you journeyed with them so long, you actually see them again when you visit their campus back in the fall or the next semester and maintain those relationships. And so this is kind of a preamble to ask the question, what are some themes you've seen of student development professionals at Christian colleges doing things well as it relates to their students leaving campus, and maybe doing things maybe not as well? And again, you're not necessarily on campus in that role, but you do have a broad perspective to see kind of a wide range of institutions. And so maybe not, this University X is doing it well and University Y is doing it poorly, but more, what are some of those general themes that you've observed for student development professionals, and how might the study abroad side really work together would and from a partnership perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first kind of word that comes to mind is just curiosity. And I think that is anytime anybody, whether it's a student development professional or a faculty member or someone else on campus, anytime they walk by the table and they just get curious of like, what is it that you all do? How can I learn a little bit more about what's going on here? And then that gives me an open door to kind of just share the heart of who we are as an organization and what we get to do. I think that open door is really beautiful because I think that gives space for us to have a conversation about like you on your college campus, you are doing really important work and you're thinking about retention, you're thinking about students finishing well, you're thinking about students graduating. And that is a really, really important vein to think about. I think, again, sometimes maybe this is a generalization, but thinking about retention, graduation, all of that, and a student getting off of your campus to study abroad, maybe those things can feel like they conflict or they don't fit together. And I think that's actually not true at all. And so I think when we get to, when a professional on a college campus just opens the door because they're curious, I think that allows us to just have conversations about what we both are passionate about, which is actually very, very similar. And especially because our missions as Christian professionals align of recognizing people as whole people and the development of the whole person, because those are already aligning, it's actually like, these two things don't have to be siloed out. And so I think kind of that perspective is really, really helpful. And so I think on the flip side, and it's not even necessarily that I've experienced like a tangible, like coming up against this necessarily when I visit college campuses, but I think the flip side is true then. Like if anybody on a college campus is closed off to having that conversation, then the door is closed. So then I can't come in with having a conversation of like, hey, we actually have very, very similar missions and we want to collaborate well, again, with the purpose of developing this student as a whole person and truly just learning from each other, because your student is going to study abroad with our program, but then your student's going to go back to you. And so what does that mean? What does that look like? We want that process to be smooth. We don't just want to dump them back to you kind of like haphazardly. So hopefully that answers your question. That was more of like kind of a philosophical answer. But I think when I go to a college campus and professionals on that campus are curious, that makes me feel really excited and really energized. It doesn't have to mean that right then and there we plan out like, this is what this is going to look like. This is how we're going to collaborate. This is how we're going to work together. But just that curiosity really energizes me. And then I think on the flip side, if there's like a withholding or if it feels like siloed out, then I think sometimes that can feel hard. So I think that's kind of what that feels like on college campuses.
Since 1980, the Jerusalem Center for Biblical Studies has partnered with Christian institutions to provide excellent faculty-led study tours in the Holy Land, Turkey, Italy, Greece, and the United Kingdom, along with other destinations of biblical or historical significance. Through integrated academics, spiritual formation, and cultural intelligence, students experience powerful, eye-opening moments as texts come alive on site. JCBS manages program design and logistics so your faculty can focus on teaching and mission-aligned learning. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to study in Oxford? Not just visit, but truly belong there? Scholarship and Christianity in Oxford is the UK subsidiary of the Council for Christian Colleges and Universities and offers semester and summer study abroad programs. You'll learn through the Oxford tutorial system and access world-class resources like the Bodleian Libraries, all within a vibrant Christian community. Choose from long-standing academic offerings across the liberal arts, STEM, and social sciences, and from the new editions of business, economics, and entrepreneurship. To learn more and start your application, visit our website.
Eric, could you talk a little bit about the reality of things being siloed as a really practical, like, yeah, that makes sense that we have a job to do and we got to pay attention to our silo. And yet there's the benefit of collaboration across areas. So there's like an appropriateness to things being focused in their area, and then a necessity or a richness to things collaborating across. And then there's just like the exhaustion of daily life to like think about how can I advocate for everything? Then I'm really fatigued and not going to advocate for anything. So how have you kind of navigated that yourself? And maybe what are some of your observations generally?
Yeah, I think that we're in a culture where silos are kind of promoted in a way. When you think of like in the recent, maybe like decade, the more and more we've talked about work-life balance, the more that we've found ourselves working in silos, because work-life balance turns into a lot of no's, right? Like that's not part of the A, B, and C in my job description. So I'm going to say no to that because I got to protect this other area of my life, and I can't let the other area of my life boil over. And so that naturally just starts to create a silo, within your own experience. But then more and more, as we have individuals focusing on what balance means or how they're trying to live that out, and they're saying no to more opportunities to partner, like interdepartmentally or intercollegiately, we begin to not recognize the values that other people are actually bringing. Ask so many professionals, like, when was the last time they got to know a faculty member, or that faculty member got to know the RD, or they actually know what's going on in that other department. And I think more and more you'll find that folks really don't know what's going on around them. I think it takes a very different kind of mindset to understand that when we're working in the college university environment, we're really working within an organism. And as Paul would put it, we're all different parts of the body. And sometimes the foot does all the walking and there's not much else going on. But when was the last time you saw someone walking with their arms straight down and not part of what was going on? It just doesn't look right. I think because we're part of the body, every part matters and every part has a role to play, and nothing is really siloed. We're all interconnected. And so having a mindset of how does the kingdom actually work? Society wants me to be siloed away from all of these other people. And really that's being independent of community, right? This, I can do it all my own. I can make it. I'm sustainable. I'm the end all be all. Like that's society. That's the world, like pushing us towards that. But the kingdom has a very different vision. At the end of the day, like partnership doesn't matter whose name is on a program or on an event, or what matters is the kingdom being built and broadened, and are the people of the kingdom being served well. And if that's the case, then it doesn't matter if my name's on something or if Greg's name is on something. The people we're serving are being served, right? And our Father in heaven will give us those accolades later when we go face to face. So we don't need accolades from man on what we do. So I think as you have that, I don't know, like that dichotomy of like, what does it mean to be in community or independent? Like that's kind of, I think, where silos fit. And I think where I've seen it, maybe dismantled super well is when professionals are willing to, as Sara said, be curious. What are you doing? How can I help you? Like, how does the work that we do together actually, how can it dovetail? Because we're actually serving the same mission. We're working towards the same goals. I love being the person who like never sends anything through inter-office mail. I will walk that finance report to the finance office, or that check deposit to the accounts payable office. Or you want to have a meeting? Great. I'm coming to you. Like we're not going to, we have to do this over Teams because you all are on the other side of the country, but on campus, like I will go to you, and like, I prefer the face-to-face. And how many silos get dismantled when we can actually get face-to-face with that other person, learn more about them, recognize that they're human too, pursuing something that God has called them to. And we're all really just coworkers. And so the willingness to not just do inter-office mail or do a Teams meeting or, let other people constantly come to me, being able to go out. builds those bridges into those other areas and actually opens up opportunities for people to invite partnership. I can do all the ideating and I can do all the invitations all I want, but if that person's not ready, it's not going to be received. But if I can build a bridge to show them that I love them and I'm supportive of what they're doing, then when there's an opportunity and they're looking for someone to get help from, well, the bridge builders are the people that tend to come up first. And so it opens that opportunity for me to add value into a different area. And again, I don't need to put my name on it. Like, I can add value and they can gain all the praise. But at the end of the day, students at my college get to be served really well. And that's really the core of what we're here for, is serving our students. And so similarly with study abroad, I think when I've seen professionals in student affairs go and talk to faculty about what they're doing, that's where, again, that curiosity opens doors. Or inviting that student who just came back from a semester-long study course to come and share to a team, or even just over coffee, opens up doors for that student who may feel that they're separated from community because they've been gone for a whole semester, and I had no one from my community to share that with. And so how do we then open the door for them? I think that's where I've seen a lot of good partnership built. I have a staff member who actually just this May did her second support study trip to Japan with two professors. She's an educator, but she's not teaching the class. She's not grading the material. She's the director of student engagement who gets to oversee campus-wide activities, and she got to go on a 2-week trip to support students and support those professors and work with them to ensure that everything on that trip went well. And that never would have happened if someone hadn't been curious and invited someone else into a conversation to see how can we actually change the way that we work together. And it's worked out really well for her. She's been invited to go twice, which is really cool.
That's awesome. I love this general wisdom around how to break down silos and how to work across. What would, for somebody who's in a role at a college or university tasked with study abroad, they're tasked with off-campus studies for their students. As somebody who's spent a good chunk of time in student affairs and student development and then connected to ACSD broadly, what is it that person working in study abroad should know about the student affairs side of the institution, if they would like to kind of expand their scope of what they might have access to across the institution?
Man, that's a great question. And I think like the title of this episode should be like curiosity, and like, please give Sarah all the credit for that. I think that like it's so true. Like, curiosity is, man, it's the root of just how we're going to be successful together, right? Whether it's curiosity of a person that you're trying to get to know, or a department or a program, like just being willing to know that like, hey, I don't know things. How do I get to know those things? A really cool thing that I got to experience this past conference, we had a director of campus safety from one of the schools that we've had members from. Right now, they're going through a lot of staffing changes. And so he actually came without anyone else from his school. He was there with a staff member who's actually leaving and going somewhere else, but there was no one else from his school. So he's a director of campus safety. This is not his natural environment to be in. And he's with a bunch of, like, for all intents and purposes, like Christian summer camp counselors. If you ask most of us, like, have you ever been a camp counselor? There's going to be a lot of folks who are saying yes, right? And it kind of feels that way with the high energy and the fun attitudes and all that stuff. But so he's experiencing this community of student development professionals from the lens and the seat of a director of campus safety, where the stuff he has to deal with is stuff that I never have to touch. And this is not a community that he has to be a part of. Like, I'm sure that there's associations for campus police or campus safety that he could delve into to learn best practices in, like chokeholds and, like whatever, like all the other stuff that they do, like Clery reporting and crime and all that stuff. But he came to a place where he's learning how to better serve students. And one of the responses that he had was, well, I'm learning a lot about things I didn't know before, and it's really helpful. Previously, I had a friend who worked in operations, and similarly, he spent a lot of time just asking questions and getting to know the student life area, and came to find out, like, wow, like, this is not the perspective that we in operations always have of what you do, it's really helpful to get to know this so we can better do our jobs. So I think like, for those who are working in global programs offices, if we only have the lens of being faculty, which I think often they're not only faculty, or they may not even be faculty. They might be faculty adjacent, right? So this realm of being in betweeners, where do I belong? Who do I connect to best? There's that heavy academic component because we are doing trips for academic credit. There's learning outcomes and assessment that has to go with what we do. We're trying to retain students and help them be successful and persist to graduation, while having these amazing like cross-cultural experiences that deepen their understanding of who they are and who God's made them to be. But at the same time, like I feel like there's a lot of the student life component side that also gets delved into. I know here at Grove City, our own director of global programs, Derek Bradley, does a phenomenal job of having one foot in either side. He's tremendously helpful to faculty, and he's super fun and throws some amazing events that really get excited about engaging together. And he's walked the line of that political invitation into other areas like super well, where he's been able to get others on board with some of his vision. And I think, for someone like Derek or similar folks, looking at ACSD and what we offer is that it's kind of that open doorway to, if you're curious about what the other side really looks like and how you can leverage it to better serve your students, well, this is a place that's primed and ready for you. You can contextualize anything. So coming to our conference, or sitting in on a webinar, or reading articles about student care, support, retention. I led a workshop this year on helping men better engage on the college campus, and how many women versus men are engaging in study abroad on various campuses. I'd be willing to bet it's probably more women than men, right? And so talking about how it's happening in the residence hall might not be the exact context for every study abroad person. But if they're struggling with engaging men and going on these trips and having these experiences, well, then you can contextualize the information to what you're trying to do. So I think that there's a lot of great tie over and a lot of opportunity to have curiosity satisfied. But I would also say, vice versa, like student affairs professionals need to be curious about other things. They need to be like my director, Katie, who wants to go and learn about study abroad and the academic side. Because if it's only one-sided, then we're not building together. One person's doing a lot of work and then the others are kind of riding on coattails. And so we all need to be curious. We all need to be asking questions and looking for those opportunities to engage well with each other in our various areas.
I love that. Okay, so one of the things you hear general professional advice, and sometimes it seems like the obvious answer or the obvious advice is like, figure out a way to advocate to leadership for why your area is important. Like that's the standard advice. Figure out how to advocate to leadership why your area is important, which baked into that assumes that leadership thinks other areas are maybe more important, and you need to kind of compete with those other areas to show why your area is more important. But I would say Paul's call to the church to be the body is actually how we as Christians can really reimagine some of this generic worldly advice to say we could advocate to leadership, and there's probably room for that. But really what we can do, and we don't even need to ask permission, is we can turn to our peers across the institution and say, hey, let's just work together. I want to be curious. I want to come into your area. What's common sense to you in student affairs is actually something I didn't know about. Or maybe what's common sense to myself or others that work in global education maybe is not so common sense to those working in student affairs. And so I love the story of the campus safety guy coming to ACSD, and how much better is he going to be at his job when he's clearly the point person for campus safety and has the most expertise in that area on his campus. And he could improve marginally with more conferences in his area, but he can improve exponentially by knowing the entire tapestry of his whole institution and being able to move and navigate quickly across the whole institution by what's important. And so then you're not necessarily advocating to leadership for why your area is important, but you're tying in with the rest of the institution and saying, together, we're just doing the thing. we don't need leadership's approval necessarily. And I'm not talking about going rogue or anything like that. I'm just saying like we can work together. And that folks that take initiative and have ambition and drive and see a need and fill a need, like that posture grows exponentially. I was reflecting a lot on your story about how you go around to campus for yourself. That's just a thing that you've made important. And that one thing probably by itself isn't a solution or the reason why you're effective in your role, but it is a contributing factor that compounds over time. And so you never know which day that you walked the report down to the finance office really made the difference with Susie Q in the finance office, but it's the fact that you've done that, 50 times this semester across the institution, it compounds. And so probably one of the things I'm walking away with today is like, what are those small things that in and of themselves may not be the way that I collaborate best across Christian higher ed, like as a silver bullet, but what are small things that I can begin to do that can compound over time? And so, I'm grateful for really a lot of the perspective that you've shared today and your openness to sharing how you approach work, Eric, the work of ACSD, and how important student development is on a college campus and how much students point back to their experience in res life, in their res halls and their roommates, sometimes, and maybe even often more than what they learned in any one particular class. And so, I think on the study abroad side, we find ourselves doing both, delivering college classes for academic credit and hosting students and housing students and doing all the res life and the weekly chapel and the one-on-ones. And so we find ourselves in study abroad kind of straddling both of those in a faraway place where we kind of need to recreate some of the offices that an institution might have on campus. So just thank you for the encouragement and the perspective that you've shared today across all of this.
Yeah, it's been a privilege. Thanks for having me.
And Sara, thanks yourself as well for taking the trek out to Calvin and hanging with all the summer camp folks, because I know that's always a good time.
It was a blast. It was so fun. I was like, I'll hang out here every year if you need me to.
Please do. Please do.
It was a blast.
If somebody wanted to get connected to ACSD and have a better understanding of what ACSD is, how might they get connected?
Yeah, so they can go to www.acsd.org and they'll find all the ways there on the website how to connect with us. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn. If you search for Association for Christians in Student Development, we'll pop up. And if they want to reach out to me directly, my ACSD email is outreachchair@acsd.org. I'm happy to field any questions, comments, concerns. I also really like dad jokes, so send me your best dad joke.
That's awesome. And you will be, along with the rest of the crew, at Biola University, June 2027 for next year's conference. And Living and Learning will be there as well, and excited to be hanging with you all.
Yeah, really excited for it.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for your time today, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Bye.
Teach Beyond is a global mission organization focused on reaching the nations through education. Teach Beyond comes alongside people who have a heart for the world to help them imagine how they could use their degrees, passions, and gifts in global missions. Education in all its forms opens doors for the gospel. Study abroad can be a meaningful step in discovering that calling, and Teach Beyond helps students continue the journey of connecting with God's global mission. To learn more, visit teachbeyond.org. Sending students across the globe is a life-changing opportunity, but managing the airfare logistics, that's a whole different story. Whether you're planning a full semester abroad, a J-term, May-term, or a faculty-led summer program, World of Travel specializes in making airfare bookings effortless. From securing negotiated group rates to coordinating complex itineraries, they manage all the details, from ticketing to touchdown. Ensure your students arrive safely and affordably. Visit worldoftraveling.com to start your custom quote today.